everyone, welcome to Handling History Series Episode 3, How to Answer Utility Questions for Lower Sec. So what are utility questions? Some examples are, how useful is this source in showing XXX? Again, note that the question is asking for X, and so you must reply about the source usefulness in terms of X and not anything else, to give you scope and focus as well. So essentially, this is somewhat like evaluating the relevance of sources in aiding in your understanding of the certain subject matter. In this case, it's XXX. So what are the steps to answering utility questions? Firstly, you must have one useful. Essentially, this means write one paragraph about what's useful about the source. So for example, if the XXX, like what I said like what was up here in showing XXX, is the conditions during the Japanese occupation, you can say that this source is useful in showing me that most of the Chinese were treated badly during the Japanese occupation. So note here that I'm answering to the question of this because it's my focus. So you must remember. Next, when you say that this source is useful in showing me that most of the Chinese were treated badly during the Japanese occupation, you are essentially making an inference because you are deducing based on what the source is saying. So I talked about that in one of my previous videos. So hint hint, search up how to answer inference questions to help you in learning how to make inferences, because that's the basic, that's like your foundation. So of course you have to back up your inference with evidence and elaboration, and after that you use contextual knowledge or another source to cross-refer to show that this point is indeed useful. So next step, not useful. So you must say a point that is not useful. So you dedicate one paragraph to saying what's not useful about the source. For example, the source is not useful in showing me the conditions of living for the Jap soldiers during the Japanese occupation. Then you use your contextual knowledge to fill up this gap in information. But sometimes when you're doing SBQs, this contextual knowledge may be other sources. But of course, you just play safe and have some contextual knowledge as well to build a bit of foundation to your historical knowledge. So you use this contextual knowledge to fill up this gap in information by writing specifically about the missing information. Time and space are crucial. Remember your dates, your specifics, numbers, everything. And in lower sec, as long as there's a gap in info that you recognize and are able to fill in with the appropriate contextual knowledge, it is good enough already. But in upper sec, so we're kind of digressing here, but in upper sec, you are required to think exactly how realistic should we place our expectations of the source. Well, you can start thinking now to help you do some like critical thinking. Yeah. So for instance, a source cannot be talking about both conditions of the Chinese living during the Japanese occupation and the Japanese soldiers, right? Because no source can be so comprehensive unless it is a textbook. Similarly, a source cannot be both talking about China and India at the same time, because a source cannot be so comprehensive, and you cannot expect so much of a source. So you must be realistic in saying your gap of information. In addition, in upper sec, you are also discouraged from saying things like the source is not useful in showing me the minority of the Chinese who were treated well. This sentence is in response to my post question, which is what were the conditions, how reliable is this, how useful is this source in showing that the conditions of people living under Japanese rule. So if you think about it, why would a source present two completely different points of view? Most of the time for primary sources there may be ulterior motives, so it's rather unlikely for two points of view to be fully represented. So in upper sec, you have to think more carefully about your choice of gap in info that you want to address. But I don't think you have to worry about it for now. Yeah, because it's lower sec things. Next, do useful or not useful based on source provenance or purpose. Again, this is an inference of purpose. So do check out my previous video about the skills taught in the inference video. Go search it up, and if let's say you're not sure how to do inference of purpose. So for inference of purpose, just nagging over here, remember your target audience, your intended impact, active verb, and your message. And remember, give evidence and elaborate, no CK is needed. However, as history is a humanities, you might potentially not be able to write about purpose if the source purpose is unclear, so you can't determine the purpose of the source. Remember, in my previous video, I actually talked about how source provenance is very, very important when you're doing inference of purpose. And so if the source provenance is unclear or not specific enough, you might not be able to do your inference of you might not be able to do your usefulness or not useful based on purpose. But usually this won't happen in upper sec, so this won't happen in upper sec, but in lower sec it might. So in the case that you cannot do a useful or not useful based on purpose, you can do another useful or not useful point, which is like the points 2 and 3 above above here. Points 2, point 3, point 1. So to help you score the highest band, but then before you do that, make sure you're really sure that there's no way you can do purpose first. So remember that for all my videos, I'm actually sharing about the highest level of LOMs. So as the steps go by, your score on the LOMs get higher. So as like step 1, step 2, step 3, your score on the LOMs gets higher. So sometimes there might not be enough time in the exam, so prioritize wisely. Make sure you write as little as possible to get the highest LOMs. So I'll be posting a video about the general LOMs for every SBQ skill you need to know for lower sec soon, along with tips about how you can write and what you can write and what you can leave out to help cope with exam time management. So do keep updated. So this is the end of today's sharing. Please comment in the comment section below if you have any questions or feedback. For a more comprehensive set of notes, head over to Carousel at the Daydreamer and PM me the discount code in bold here for a $5 discount. In the next episode of the Handling History series, I'll be sharing about how to write history essays for lower sec. Stay tuned. Until then, bye!